Today, we're talking about where doing good meets the potential of what you can do, not just here with the foundation, but in what you do across the country and in your life. As Leslie shared, I've been in the sector for about 20 years and have worked for organizations like the University of Toronto, for a large group of churches in Canada, but also in tax and advisory, helping generous Canadians as they look to make a difference. And what I found in these past 20 years is that the balance of what people often call either doing good, some people call it philanthropy, is a balance between the head and the heart. Now, as Leslie shared, I'm going to share some stories from the experience of many people I've walked with over these past couple decades. One of them being that the word philanthropy for so many people is intimidating. It used to be only the domain of wealthy families, and today we see more regular families who are different in every way. Let me Canadianize this a bit for us, who are regular people just trying to do good. If anybody remembers many different episodes of doing good in our colleagues, our CBC show here, but for so many of us, especially now, even in the pandemic, we think of fundraising and doing good and all the activities. One of my challenges is when it comes to this kind of work, when people think of fundraising, they think of bake sales. And I have an adult onset allergy now to chocolate almonds. I will not sell them anymore because, as you know, in our schools and in our communities, it's one of the things that is fundraising. But how do we go over and above fundraising to help our communities? A lot of the work I do with the Canadian Association with Gift Planners is working with advisors in tax and financial planning, estate planning, because Canada has, in fact, the greatest charitable tax credit system in the world. But no one knows. And that's where advisors can help us in the domain of the head. But that's not where this starts. It is the domain of the heart. Again, wonderful work that advisors do in articles in the national newspapers to help us take advantage of the many benefits that we can use in the donating world. But again, that's just the head. I want to share just a couple stories with you today, and stories of where the head meets the heart to do great good. And I hope that it helps you to think about ways we can be inspired as regular, everyday Canadians to do more good, but good that is based in our dreams, not just what the organizations want. Again, the foundation talks about removing barriers to help education, to help individuals in that space. Some people may know this, but a lot don't. The person who created dynamite, now almost 100 plus years ago, was an incredible philanthropist the world over. He had given to hospitals and universities and community organizations, and he received a very odd gift at the turn of the century, so there was no Twitter. The newspaper, the national newspaper, thought that he had died when in fact it was his brother who had passed away in the next country over. And he woke up one day to the national newspaper front page and his own obituary. Now, again, he had given money all over the country. He had done incredible donations. And in fact, most of his estate was already going to charity. And he said, all right, let's see what this obituary says. What does the world think of me? And the newspaper read, hooray, the merchant of death is dead. Let us celebrate putting this horrible man into the ground. And he was like, what? And he went back and he changed his estate plan, not to just speak to the head, to be efficient in the way that he gives, but to tell a story of the heart, to think deeply about the world he wanted to see and how he could use, in his case, considerable wealth to do so. That person's name was Alfred Nobel, and that was the creation of the Nobel Peace Prize, which we know today has had many years of a legacy instead of just giving that money away. Now, we know from the person on the left to the guy on the right, who, if you're like me, a Generation X, or if you've been to a cottage or had a Caesar on a deck on May 24, you know who this dude is. Gord Downie knew that he was connected to the DNA of Canada. And when he received a similar gift to Alfred Nobel, a terminal diagnosis, he thought about his legacy. And he knew he didn't have gigantic wealth, And he knew that he had people he wanted to take care of in his family, but he also knew that people said, "We love you, Gord. We want to know what it is you care about." And so he created the Downey Wenjack Foundation to plug into Canada's reconciliation journey. And when he passed away, he said, "If you love me, here's a bucket. Feel free to throw money in it. We're going to do good together." And people, and actually governments and foundations, put hundreds of millions of dollars into that bucket. And today, now, 5+ years later, the Downey Wenjack Foundation is doing incredible work in reconciliation across Canada. But let's take it to a place that's more practical. In my work in education, working in a post secondary environment, I remember helping somebody who was connected to social work. And she was giving a gift to that social work community, and she was really upset, frankly, cranky. And finally, we stopped and said, and I got in trouble for stopping to say this because in fundraising, we always march forward. We said, "Why are you so upset? Why is this not a happy occasion for you making this incredible gift?" Because she was someone who had worked her whole life, had no family, was giving quite a bit of money towards this idea of social work. And she said, "I don't like awards and bursaries." She said, "If I had my way," and we said, "Please tell us your vision." She said, "What I would like is I would like a social worker who worked her whole life like me to not be chosen from someone of academic excellence or financial need, because very often that's not someone who will stay in the profession. I want at graduation not a big stage or a framed plaque. I want the faculty to tap someone on the shoulder and explain to them that their entire school debt is erased." We said, "Wow, that's really powerful, but to do that in an endowed concept will take a lot." And she said, "I worked all my life. Later in life, I married someone, and together we had some wealth, and I don't have people and very few people to take care of, and I want to do something meaningful." And that was way more than a scholarship or a bursary, but it was because she picked up the phone and called the institution and said, "Let's just talk. I don't know what's possible. Again, we know many of you are supporting the organization, but this is time for you to say, I worked hard to earn this money and I wanted to do something powerful, but we won't know unless we talk." So if I leave you one of these three messages today, number one is think with your head, but act with your heart. Number two, pick up the phone or text or email or tweet or whatever it is and talk to the foundation about your ideas, about your dreams to eliminate barriers. And they can help you to find opportunities to do some pretty cool things together. My last story today, you can see on the bottom right, is a janitor's bucket. And this is when I worked with a group of churches and actually were connected to school boards. And we had got notification that a high school janitor had left $100,000 gift to create opportunities for very young children in schools for food. Now, this was a number of years ago before we had many food programs like we do today. And we contacted them and said, "This is what kind of gift is this?" And what happened is the family let us know that as a school board employee, he had policies connected to his job. And in financial planning with his advisor said, "We will protect your family." He had a number of kids, but let's think about donating this life insurance policy, and it will help and it will create a vision for what you believe in. And he said, "Okay, let's do it." And he didn't think of it, and they protected his family, and his family was taken care of in his financial plan. But when he passed away, he and his family never thought that this gift, which frankly, again, in Canada, when you give in life, you get back about half on your taxes, anything you give over $200, and you get through your estate 100% back in your taxes if you plan it. And his family was excited because this was something incredible they could do. They never thought possible. And when they said why to the kids in these food programs, his spouse said he saw these kids who came to school hungry and he wanted to do more about it. He did a lot about it when he was alive, but now he can do so much more through this plan. And so that's what I mean by think with your head and act with your heart. In Canada, we are very blessed to have ways that you can take care of your family. You can make sure that you're okay, but we have incredible benefits in life and in your estate where there are many benefits for everyday Canadians, not just the wealthy, to create a plan. But it won't happen unless you plan. So that's that piece, to pick up the phone and talk to the organization about what's possible. Let me give you a little bit of inside baseball here in the work that I do. When we look at the concept of this confusing word, legacy. Dr. Russell James out of Texas Tech University in the United States did some groundbreaking work where he put generous people in an MRI machine and then saw what part of the brain lit up when he talked to them about generosity. And his work showed that the giving that we do in life, when we support programs, when we participate in fundraising, when we give in life, that part of the brain that feels good, that dopamine, that feeling good feeling, that warm and fuzzy, was connected to giving. But the part of the brain that was connected to giving through an estate, to planning your giving, was the part of the brain connected to autobiography. So my last thought when I share with you to say, how can we as regular people start dreaming dreams of what we think could be possible? It's looking back through your life and thinking about what barriers there were for you. We don't have to think about all these new kind of barriers in the world. You remember what was a challenge for you, for your kids, for your community. Talk to the foundation about the barriers you know well and understand and how we can look to remove them. The team asked me to share with you because it is something you'll see across the country this year. We actually piloted this in Niagara, Hamilton this year, and it's going to be all over the country. Is a national movement to talk about that concept of personal legacy in our head and in our heart, for you to be confident in telling your own story. We don't ask. In my work in these number of years, when we ask people, who would you like to honor? They say, my mother, my father, my grandparents were innovators. My family cares about this community, but that story is not often told. We wait for obituaries to tell stories. We need to do it before. So you're going to see these billboards. You're going to see it in the Mississauga newses all across social and digital media to talk about how it doesn't have to be a choice. Again, in Canada, we have incredible benefits. Talk to an estate lawyer. Talk to your financial planner to understand the benefits, to say you don't have to choose between the barriers to education towards helping people, empowering people of all ages and stages in life, and doing good and taking care of your loved ones and the taxes that you pay. I'm a big book reader and happy to share a couple of fun reads with you. On the left is a book by a Canadian best-selling author in finance and retirement. On the right is a book by a colleague of ours, a financial advisor, who tells stories of how regular Canadians, the problem is that we've been convinced that philanthropy is done by philanthropists. And I'm sorry to tell you, that's a very American concept. We as Canadians watch too much American television. The most powerful giving, and this comes from Statistics Canada data, the most powerful giving is done by everyday people. And too, a lot of that big philanthropy you see in newspapers doesn't help us, doesn't affect our kids and our community here in Halton. We need to dream in the technicolor of our community. We need to think about what we can do and how we do it. So I thank the team for having me today. Again, that's what we do at CGP. If we can help you in your community, or if anybody here is an advisor, to talk about where the head meets the heart and to think about what it is that we can do. So I leave you today again to think about how you can make a difference by dreaming about where the head meets the heart in your life story. Picking up the phone to talk to the foundation so you can dream together. Again, we are looking forward to the day, I'll let you know, this is the Botanical Gardens, that we can walk and talk about the dreams that we have to make a difference. I'm wearing a pink shirt today. As we know, today's Pink Shirt Day, and we talk about bullying in our communities. We know that a lot of you have incredible dreams and have seen practical things that can change. Together, let's look to remove those barriers, to make a difference in a way is possible. And the foundation is here to help tell your story.